Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone who made it here in person in sunny Davos. And welcome everyone joining us online. We are on live stream today, which is awesome. Allows us to have an even bigger impact. My name is Marina Cvetkovic. I am an executive coach and board advisor. And together with my partner, Nicole, we run a boutique executive advisory firm based out of Zurich, but operating globally. And we work with quite a few boards and leadership teams. And we obviously observe the challenges of inclusive growth, fragmented world, helping align purpose with profit and the friction that arises from that. And so that's where my passion was, to have this conversation today with all of you. And I'm super, super excited about this panel in particular. And also about the particular panelists we managed to get here with us today. So I'm going to start with maybe, Sophia, I can start with you. So, Miss Sophia Kounenaki, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
So you are a president of the Athens Chamber of Commerce, but you're also doing...
Industry.
Yes, and you're also doing a lot of other things, which is quite impressive. You're a president of the National Chamber Network of Women Entrepreneurs, and you're also a member of the board of 2 listed companies in Greece.
Yes.
And also, I understand you initiated and developed the Hellenic Corporate Governance Code, which I would love to hear more about. And, working on promotion of Greek enterprises, as well as the Greek Corporate Governance Council in 2012 with 15 member councils, and you're currently a member of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Welcome. Thank you. Anything you'd like to add as we open this panel? Anything you would like to add to your intro?
No. I'm very happy to be here. So
yeah,
let's start.
We are super happy to have you. Welcome. Okay, I'm going to continue with Keith. Dr. Keith Dorsey, welcome, who flew in from far to be with us today, quite far. You'll tell us a little bit more about that. So Keith is a researcher. You're so many things, Keith. I don't even know where to start. But I'm going to start from researcher, author, advisor, and an active board member. So you advise boards, but you also sit on boards at the same time, and particularly focused on the issues of diversity, governance, and strategic growth for both private and public corporate boards. You are the NACD certified director, and you've been recognized as an honoree of 100, one of the 100 exceptional board directors. Was it last year, Keith?
2023, yes.
Yes, which is really an incredible honor. So congratulations again. We're very excited to have you. And you are currently managing partner and U.S. practice leader for CEO and board services at Boyden.
Yes.
And Boyden, for those of you who don't know, is a global executive search firm with 75 offices in 45 countries. So quite a broad global reach and some impressive work you're doing there. And your work there is focused on helping boards provide a comprehensive set of, consulting services, particularly board refreshment, and you're passionate about board diversity, as well as CEO succession planning. So welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Marina. It's great to be here.
And then, last but not least, we have Diana here, who I'm super, super excited about. Diana is the founder and the CEO of the Boardroom.
So I like to say proud founder. I think that makes it different. Proud founder, yeah. It's like when they ask me, where are you from? Well, I'm a proud Greek. Is there any other kind? Only proud Greeks, right? So there you go.
I love it. A very proud founder of the Boardroom, as you should be. It's quite impressive what you're doing with the Boardroom and how you're expanding. And for those of you who are not familiar, the Boardroom is the first private club of women executives who inspire to be board members.
I'm sure everyone knows the Boardroom. I mean, you don't have to talk about it. Thank you.
Yeah.
But thank you for that. Thank you.
If you don't, please do check it out. There, you are really doing some really impressive things, and we'll get into that in the panel today. You founded it in Switzerland not so long ago, 2021.
Yeah, it was only 2 years
Yes.
ago. Yeah. So I was talking to kids, like people asked me, like, why did you find the Boardroom? And it was actually my personal business case when I was doing my MBA at Harvard Business School. So it was like, the best place to build it. Then we launched it in Switzerland, and now we're expanding across Europe. I have my Swiss chair here, members. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, welcome. And I know you've been expanding over the years, and my LinkedIn is popping with there's a new house, and I'm just thinking, way to go, Diana and team. Really, really
Thank
impressive.
you, appreciate it. Thank you.
We need that. We need definitely more of that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So welcome, everyone. Super excited to have you here. And my name, as I said, is Marina. I'm a board advisor based out of Zurich. So for me, it was a quick local trip here to Davos. How lucky some of us are. I want to start with, so the topic of today is board leadership for inclusive growth in a fragmented world. It's such a big topic.
How much time do we have?
Such a big topic, as I was thinking about preparing for today, I'm like, wow, there's just so much to cover. So let's try to unpack what we can, and let's hope that this conversation inspires many more, because one conversation is definitely not going to be enough. But I want to start with something aspirational. I want to start with, in your mind, when you think of a future-ready board, what does that look like? What comes to mind in maybe one sentence, Whoever wants to go first.
I can start. Yeah. So obviously, diverse board, right? We need more women on boards, diverse backgrounds. A board that is inclusive, because diversity is not enough. Everyone needs to feel safe and to be heard. And I would say a board that embraces stakeholder capitalism. So we actually need to move on from shareholders to the broader spectrum of stakeholders. So that's my ideal board, and we're working on that, right?
Thank you.
I would say that, just to add on to that boards, as you know, play a crucial role in really navigating the complexities of a dynamic world and the business environment. And when you think about a future-ready board, I think boards are more ready and future-ready when it comes to their shareholders' needs. But when it comes to the needs of their actual stakeholders, boards still have a little ways to go. They're not as future-ready as I would say they need to be.
Thank you, and we'll get into that. Thanks, Kita.
Well, we need more independent members on the boards. And of course, we need members with diverse skills. We live in challenging times with geopolitical upheaval, the climate crisis, the skills gap, and the digital transformation. So we need boards with I wouldn't say digital skills, because these boards could have the experts for the digital skills, but they need to know the need. We need boards with a solid ESG agenda.
Yes.
And with different ages.
Yeah. And much more, I'm sure. But I think that's let's start with that. Yes, so much to unpack here. And if we, yes.
If I may add,
yes, please.
At the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry, together with the Special Secretariat of Foresight that belongs to the presidency of the Greek government, we do seminars, and now we are going to have future labs for C-level executives and board members about all the things that the future may bring, or the futures, as they say, And we bring specialists and futurists from all over the world for different sectors of the economy, and they give lectures and make workshops. And that's an excellent way to educate boards, because we need boards that are well informed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that are futuristic, that are looking outside. That is a very impressive practice you have there. We can learn from that. Thank you. And if we agree, that better boards lead to better enterprises, and we need better enterprises for a better world. Like I think we can all agree that, the importance of corporate sector in all the SDGs, we're discussing here and the goals we're trying to achieve. What is the number one thing in your mind that boards need to change in order to become a more powerful catalyst, a better force for good in the world?
I think that's a very important question. Firstly, we need to keep in mind, and I'm a lawyer, this is the lawyer talking, so the boardroom is the most important room in a corporation, yes. Right? So that's why we're talking about boards, because people say, like, why are you just focusing on boards, and why don't you build the pipeline, middle management, and so on? So we need to keep in mind the reason why we give such an emphasis on boards, and that's why we have a panel on board today, is because the boardroom is the most important room in a corporation. So if we want boards to be a more powerful catalyst for the future, I think if we had to choose one thing, and we're going to change many things, but if we could choose one thing, I would say it's a mindset shift. So they need to shift from, let's call it a profit-centric mindset, to a broader, to a more holistic way of thinking that actually integrates, environmental, social, governance considerations in both strategic planning, because we need to keep in mind what do boards do. So they do strategic planning and then decision making. So they need to actually have a more holistic approach, which means that, as I said earlier, they need to actually adopt stakeholder capitalism. They need to recognize that corporate success is not measured only with, financial metrics. So I'm not underestimating the bottom line. Yes. We all work for corporations, and at the end of the day, we look at the bottom line. But that's not the only metric for corporate success. So we need to look at the impact that a corporation has on the environment, on societies, on communities, on employees, all the relevant stakeholders. And they need to actually align their strategic planning and decision making to that. If we don't do that, we're not going to go anywhere. And you need incentives, you need compliance, regulation, but it's a mindset shift.
I would add to that by saying I believe boards need to change the way they identify and recruit new board members. There's this uncertainty reduction theory that basically most boards subscribe to, where they try to reduce their uncertainty about knowing people. Boards recruit people that they know. Or they recruit people that their most trusted friends know. And they do that to reduce and mitigate their risk when it comes to bringing on new board members. And so therefore, they'll sit around the board table when there's a time to bring on that next board member, and they'll ask each other sitting around the board, who do we know? And in doing that, they're just, when it comes to similarity theory, they're actually bringing on more people who look and act like themselves. And that makes it very difficult from a diversity standpoint. So you end up getting more of the same. So I think one of the main things boards should do to actually attract and make a difference in the world is surround themselves with the diversity, the cognitive diversity, and surround themselves with people from many walks of life so that they can be in touch with the many different things in our dynamic world that boards should be focused on. So that's what I would add.
Thank you.
I completely agree. I would call it, I would change the short-termism of the boards, because the boards ensure also the values that have to be in line with corporate culture.
Yeah.
So, yes, apart from the profits, if they don't take care of the society and the environment that they are in and they operate, what good that makes.
And we touched a little bit, Keith, you mentioned cognitive diversity. Diana, you mentioned diversity doesn't equal inclusion on boards. What is an inclusive board, and why does that matter?
Well, I would say an inclusive board is a board that fully taps into the experiences and perspectives of their actual board members. And by tapping into the board members' perspectives and experiences, the board's better equipped to actually understand and address their needs of their diverse members. And by doing that, you're actually really tapping into the business directives and the diversity that the businesses and practices need.
Yeah, I love that, because one thing is, and I'm sure, Diana, you have a view on this as
you
well.
can hold me back. You can see me, like, I want to say more about this, because, we keep talking about, diverse boards, right?
Yeah.
So I promote diversity on boards. Yeah. And we're missing out on inclusion. And we had a beautiful panel with IMD today talking about, the difference between diversity and inclusion on boards. And what I said is that diversity without inclusion is just a story of missed opportunities. So what is the point of actually inviting, diverse board members, with diverse backgrounds, perspective, cultures, expertise, gender, age, and so forth, if you don't create the culture for them to feel comfortable and safe enough to actually express all those diverse perspectives and mindsets? So we're missing out the whole benefit of diversity unless we create that culture of inclusion. And when we're talking about, board members, so we had, earlier we were discussing with the US CEO of Deloitte, and he's like, who is responsible for inclusion in my organization? He was like, I'm the CEO of Deloitte, I'm responsible for this. When we're talking about boards, what is the role of the chair? So the chair actually plays a fundamental role. That's why we actually want to promote more women board members as board chairs, because I think they have a tremendous ability in order to build that culture. So the board chair has a responsibility to create that culture of inclusion, make sure that everyone is heard, we have this equal speaking time, and we all feel safe and courageous to raise our hands, to challenge the status quo, to ask the difficult questions. And I think, Sophia, you mentioned earlier about independent board members. That's crucial, because if board members are not independent, how will they raise their hand and object? And I think that as board members, we usually step up, and we also need to know where to step down. Mm-hmm. And that's where we need independent board members. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about independence, and again, it's the lawyer, it's not only the legal independence, or you get, for example, the Hellenic Capital Markets Commission to say, yeah, you're independent because for the past 3 years you have not been employed, or you're not in a personal relationship with a CEO or whatever. Then you have the financial, well, it's true. But then you have let's say, the ethical independence, or even the financial independence. So we have, when we talk with proxy advisors, for example, that your board remuneration cannot be more than 10% of your overall income. That's another independence, which means that if things go wrong, I'm going to challenge, I'm going to resign, because my well-being, my livelihood is actually not reliant on that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this.
Well, if I may add, because you mentioned the proxy advisors, we should go to the 50-50 independent members for boards. And unfortunately, the chairs do not do such a good job for gender diversity. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that I am pro quotas, unfortunately, because in Greece, we saw that first, we drafted the Corporate Governance Code, and that's self-regulatory and comply or explain code. And we saw that from women participation from 8%, it went up to 10%. And then 2 years now, we have a corporate governance law that says that the gender diversity is 25%, the quotas. Thank God the European Commission now regulation will make it 33 up to 2026.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to have directives and quotas in order to proceed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the key word is unfortunately. So if you notice, Sophia said, unfortunately, we need quotas. And my view on quotas has changed over time, right? So I started, first of all, as a lawyer, I want, an organic process. I don't want regulation or legislation to actually make gender parity a reality. Then, as a woman, we're strong, independent women, we have excelled in the workplace based on, merit and ability and hard work. We want to make sure that we got those seats based on ability, not because someone was just checking a box. So all that is fine. But unfortunately, as Sophia said, we have been so slow in achieving gender parity that there is no other solution than to implement extraordinary, temporary measures like quotas. Because before the ESG oversight of the implementation of the quotas, we were just, watching corporations enjoy privileges for far too long, and we were just hoping that they would do what is just and right. So hope is actually not working for us. So unfortunately, there is no other way but to implement quotas as an extraordinary special measure.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into, do we need more of this in a broader kind of context, not just gender diversity, but Keith, let's stay with DE&I.
Yes.
And with your U.S. lens, I'm curious because there's just so many DE&I wars over there. How has that impacted the corporate landscape, and what have you seen, in terms of how boards are navigating this and success? What does it take to successfully navigate this? Because it's such a tricky topic.
It's a very tricky topic. Actually, in the U.S. right now, we're dealing with cultural wars. It's being incredibly politicized right now. You have the right and the left really arguing and bringing up situations that are not germane when it comes to DEI. And so right after the unfortunate murder of George Floyd in 2020, DEI has had a significant uptick in the U.S. From a gender and people of color standpoint. There has been an uptick over the years, but just over the last 12 months, due to some legislation decisions that have been made, as well as some well-funded political and legal suits, we're running into more situations where DEI is actually being attacked. And DEI has become a bad word in the U.S. And so where I'm at a point, I'm challenging board leaders, I'm challenging corporate leaders to reflect for a moment, because there were a lot of things happening in the summer of 2020 and throughout 2021 that accelerated the DEI efforts. So these business leaders and corporate leaders, board leaders, decided that there's a reason why they wanted to improve DEI within their organizations. I'm asking those same leaders to reflect as to why that was important at that particular point. In that reflection, uncover, were they trying to just check a box to meet the needs of society and the pressure that society was putting on them? Or were they really looking at this and looking at diversity, inclusion, and equity? Are they looking at it as a moral imperative? And if it was a moral imperative, what's changed over the last 12 months? Did something change and it's no longer a moral imperative? If it was a check-the-box exercise, are you okay with that? Does that fit your value system? Does that fit your culture? And so I'm asking board leaders to check themselves right now, because of the pressure that the various political agencies are putting on them right now. You have more and more leaders actually what they call greenhousing, where they may be doing the right things from a DEI standpoint, but they're no longer putting it in their proxy because they don't like the pressure that they're getting from various factions, or they are deciding. I've seen various media outlets that are actually attacking those DEI efforts whenever there's some sort of issue, a business issue or incident or something like that. They will say with their whataboutisms and what about DEI? Did DEI have something to do with those issues? And they're really muddying the waters and mudslinging at this particular point. And because of that, and these suits that are coming up that have no basis whatsoever, but it's enough to make, you said lawyers, it's enough to make lawyers say, let's pause, and maybe we don't want to have as much attention on this, but if the moral imperatives around DEI are the same, then the boards must have the intestinal fortitude to continue to do the things that they know they need to do, not just for society, not just for legislation reasons, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. And, what we're essentially talking about here is like boards stepping up into leading beyond profit. Diana, you addressed that with saying, shareholder versus stakeholder. Sophia, you mentioned like taking a more futuristic lens, and we're particularly not focusing on diversity because diversity is just one element of it. But I'm curious, if we talk about diversity and then particularly inclusion and inclusive boards, we're here for sustainable future, right? We're here because the ultimate goal of this is hopefully helping advance the SDGs, right? Why are inclusive boards really critical in order to drive enterprises into a more sustainable future?
I think there's one way to achieve sustainable growth, and that is with corporations that are diverse and inclusive. And it's very simple because, so what is sustainability? So sustainability means that we need to take into consideration environment, social, governance, economic issues. So these are different aspects, and these are sometimes conflicting considerations that corporations need to take place. Yeah. So where you have all these diverse aspects and sometimes conflicting aspects, in order for you to make very complex decisions, what do you need? You need all those diverse perspectives, experiences, background, in order to be able to have the expertise to manage sustainably the diverse and balance sustainably these diverse perspectives. And at the same time, what is sustainability? Sustainability, more often than not, means that we need to manage very diverse stakeholders. So if you want to sustainably manage diverse stakeholders, you need to have on your board diverse people, diverse individuals that represent the interests of these diverse stakeholders. And this is the only way you can actually engage in sustainability initiatives that have the buy-in of diverse stakeholders. So it's the only way to go to achieve sustainable growth.
I'm challenging boards to actually define diversity as well. And I'm using a term with them called optimal diversity. And optimal diversity is where you take demographic or observable diversity, being age, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender implications, and identification, coupled with cognitive diversity equals optimal diversity. And to really look at your board members and their not only their social capital that they bring, their network, and not only their human capital, their experience and education, but also their cultural capital that they bring. And when you think about their cultural capital and their experiences throughout their life, now you're talking about bringing on people that have the diversity regionally, to have a board, let's just say, that is a multinational organization, but all your board members are from Southern California, that's somewhat of a problem there. And even if you do have the observable diversity in the room, but when it comes to sustainability, you need to be able to understand the geopolitical issues going on around the world and have representation on your board from people around the world. Then you're exposed to different media outlets. You're exposed to more than just one perspective. And unfortunately, there are too many boards that, like I said before, because of similarity theory, recruit people who look and act like them, even though you may look in the room and from an observable standpoint, it looks diverse, but to peel the onion back a little bit more and make certain that that cognitive or diversity of thought is in the room, coupled with the cultural capital, and that's where you begin to really understand all the things that are going on in the world and be able to see it from a different perspective from your mental models, from back in your cultural capital that you bring to the table. It means boards and nomination committees need to ask different questions to truly understand who they're bringing on and not just bringing on their golfing buddy.
I love everything that Keith. I think I'm going to quote you on that optimal diversity. Yeah. First of all, I love it. And the other thing that you say, that basically we recruit people that look like us. And I think that's the largest issue here. So it starts from that. As human beings, we have the tendency to bring on people that look like us. So, for example, when you talk about gender diversity, so I keep saying women do not lack merit. So this is not a question anymore. But we do lack is the prevailing masculine perception of what a leader looks like. So basically what we need is a change in culture, a change in behavior, and we need to be more diverse and inclusive when we are actually recruiting for boards. But, I'm going to quote you on the optimal diversity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to add
yes.
The perspective of the customer, because at the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we had surveys saying that customers are not like they used to be. They pay attention to the products they buy, so that they are from sustainable companies, they are the companies that take care of the environment. These are things that nowadays customers pay attention to. Mm-hmm. So this is something that boards should take notice of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we talked today about boards and multinationals, listed companies, big companies, but what about small and medium-sized companies and family-owned companies? In Greece, more than 80% of the companies are family-owned. Mm-hmm. And these companies have 3 board members, 5 the maximum. So what we have to do is educate these companies, because we need them to be competitive. So the big ones have to set the example. We at the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry are thinking, we have a team, and I will ask you to join us, that is going to draft not a code, but best practices for small companies and family-owned companies, and succession planning. Mm-hmm. You mentioned succession planning, because these companies need to know what to do next.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned customers. So who has purchasing power? So 56% of purchasing power, sorry, Keith. Women. I'm just saying, sorry, Keith. Love everything you said, but the numbers are the numbers. Yes, 56%, right? And then you said, so what is a truly diverse and inclusive board, right? So for me, ideally, in my dreams, a diverse and inclusive board is an accurate reflection of our society, of our customers. How beautiful would that be? Men, women, cultures, backgrounds, unequal, a reflection, a mirror of our societies and all the relevant stakeholders. How beautiful would that be?
You know, I had a telecommunications company, and we ran a survey that said that women decide about everything other than telecommunications. So
No way, that's so funny. Good marketing.
I am not going to disagree with any.
So, wow. So it's, you know, if we kind of look back at our conversation, there is this interesting kind of, you know, idea. Is it compliance or courage? You know, and I know Keith and you had an interesting conversation about that. And I love that we talked so much about that aspiration for boards. I think we need more dialogue around what that looks like. Not diversity for sake of diversity, but for what it would do. Not inclusion for sake of inclusion, but for what it would do in a ripple effect in ecosystem. And I think if we're asking enterprises to step up from short-termism, they can't do that without their boards. They just simply can't. Their hands are tied, and a CEO cannot do that. Otherwise, they will be gone, right? If they don't have their board on board. So if we think about that, and we think of the future, and we think of those boards out there struggling to kind of close this gap, right? What do we think they need more of? What would help them? Would putting a higher pressure on them help? Like more regulations, more requirements, more compliance? Would that help? Or would that trigger more of the tick the box exercise? Or, as Diana said at the very beginning, I love that, do we actually need a much deeper mindset shift away from short-termism into, you know, leading beyond profit, triple bottom line, profit and purpose, however we want to call it, but into that broader mandate that, you know, boards then need to lead, as opposed to just financial results.
You know, Marina? Oh, I'm sorry, you want to?
it depends on the size of the company, I would say.
Yeah.
We don't want to impose measures or directives on micro companies, for example. For example, EFRAG is thinking of putting some new directives into micro companies. So, and I disagree apparently, but we need compliance for bigger companies.
Yeah.
And we need to have well-informed boards. We need to have well-educated boards, and we need to educate others.
Yeah. A lot of education.
You know, aspirationally, I would say both. It's a both-and situation. Boards and legislation works. We saw this many years ago in Norway, Germany, other parts of Europe, where you came out with the quotas that we talked about, that you mentioned very earlier, Diana. The quotas work. In the state of California, quotas were put out in 2019. In 2018, women represented just over 13% of the board seats. And then quotas were put in place via legislation. And by the end of 2021, women represented over 32% of the board seats and climbing. And so legislation does work. But when there isn't legislation, or legislation like in the state of California has been repealed, I don't think we should hang our heads down low. I think at that particular point, boards need more courage. And we talked about that. And boards need more courage to stand up for the things that they believe in, to stand up for and to fight against some of the issues that are out there and some of the naysayers that are out there that are mudslinging hanging, as I mentioned before. That courage is what it will take to actually get us to the next step. I also challenge actual board members, as more women get on these boards, to actually look for leadership roles. Because once we get to critical mass, and critical mass is 3 or more women on the board, or 30%, then regardless of legislation, at that particular point, and if women were taking up leadership roles, getting on the nominations and governance committee, regardless of what's happening around, we now have enough people on boards to make certain that recruitment of more women and people of color continues on. But that takes courage to step up and not let imposter syndrome stand in your way at this particular point and question, should I be on that? Should I be a chair of the board? Should I be a chair of the committee? No, step up. That takes courage. Boards should have the courage to do the right things at the right time for the right reasons.
Yeah. I love what you said, Keith. It's like, it's not about just having more women on boards, but it's about how do they use their voice once they're there, and are they fully stepping into a leadership role in that board by becoming a chair of Nom and Gov committee, as an example. How important is that?
And that is why we need independent chairs.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And also courage is also bringing your entire self into the boardroom. So I remember I got my first board appointment 7 years ago. I was very young. I was not prepared for it. I'm just being honest. I was by far the youngest. I was the only woman. And I found myself going into those board meetings with these very experienced old white men with an attitude that wanted me to blend in. It's in the human nature when you're the exception. And I feel ashamed of this, but I did it. So I was given an opportunity to sit on a board and represent every other woman behind me. And what did I do? Human nature kicks in. I wanted to be like the guys. So my clothes were darker, my voice was deeper, I smiled less. I did not ask any questions. I did not challenge the status quo. I said, I agree with Mike. I agree with. So it's a total embarrassment of diversity, my attitude for that opportunity. So since then, I learned the hard way. It's difficult to be courageous, especially when you are the only woman on the board and you're the youngest, and you are there because people think that you represent all women. So suddenly, just by being in that room, I was representing all women. So if I failed or I said the wrong thing or I acted the wrong way, people will say, well, we tried it. We failed. Every woman is going to fail in that position. The woman experiment did not work. So that is a burden that I want every woman appointed on a board, especially when she's the only woman on the board, to actually uplift. But that's learning the hard way. But the other thing that I think boards need to be aware, and organizations in general, diversity is difficult to manage. It's difficult. It's almost impossible for a non-trained leader to manage diverse teams, and it's almost impossible for a not experienced board chair to manage a diverse board. So discussions become longer. Yeah. You have different perspectives. You have disagreements. You don't have always agreeing with my friend Mike from the golf club. Yes, go Mike, you're right. It's like, Mike, I think you're wrong. I think we're doing the wrong things about challenging. So diversity, it's hard to manage. And unless we're open about the difficulty of diversity, people will push back. Because it sounds difficult, right? And it is difficult. But if you want to achieve the full benefits of diversity, you actually need to work for it. And you need trained chairs and other board members to embrace the difficulty. Because for me, that's the biggest benefit of diversity. It promotes disagreement. That's, for me, the ultimate benefit. Because it's a waste of time if I'm making a business decision and everyone at the table agrees. It's the worst thing, right?
Well said, and it really does slow the process down. But under the proper leadership, you end up getting the inclusive thoughts of everybody, and you hopefully will make better decisions as a result of that. I know as a consultant getting in front of boards and challenging the non-gov committee, we actually challenged the word fit. Be careful. I've been, as an executive, I measure 3 things when interviewing: attitude, commitment, and fit. And fit makes sense. That's the hardest area right there, is when you dive into fit. But when you think of fit for boards, sometimes that's cloaked in, we want you to be exactly like us. And then you fit. And so to challenge that word fit a little bit and to say, what do you mean with fit? I know as a search professional, I'm asked to come find, we want you to find us another CEO. And I said, well, wait a second. You have 8 CEOs, or active or former CEOs on your board today. Why do you need a 9th? and so what exactly are we trying to look for right now? So I'm challenging boards to move away from recruiting titles to actually recruiting skill sets and competencies that are more aligned with the company's strategy moving forward. And by getting them to reflect, and you hear me say challenge and reflect a lot, because that's what I think it takes to get new behavior, to do things differently, to get better results. Getting boards to actually reflect on where they are today and where they want to go tomorrow. What skill sets do they have today, and where do they have an abundance or a redundancy of skill sets, and where do they have gaps? And by reflecting on those gaps and recruiting for those gaps that are more aligned with their strategy, that's when you're going to begin to bring on diverse pools. If you're looking for diversity and the majority of the people that you're asking us to find are CEOs and they're not diverse, then we're never going to get there. You're setting us up to fail. But if we begin to fish where the fish are, and the fish may be, if level 1 is CEO, level 2 is the C-suite, and level 3 are the direct reports of the C-suite, and it's those direct reports that have more of the talent that we're looking for to be more aligned to the strategy moving forward, that's where we need to recruit, and that's where you'll find all of those diverse individuals. But that takes courage to say, let's slow down to go further and move fast in the future.
Thank you so much. And we are running out of time here, but we could keep going. It is such a big and important topic, and I'm so glad we managed to make it, as part of the World Economic Forum Week, because as Diana rightly said, I think boardroom is the most important room in any organization, and without transforming the boardroom, I don't think we can truly transform the enterprises, and if we don't transform enterprises, we can't really transform the world. So that's kind of where it all starts, and it is complex, it is difficult, it's a journey, but we keep talking about it, we keep pushing, and little by little we'll get there. So thank you, everyone, and
thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that.
I knew it.
So,
Yes, absolutely.
For the panel. To all the point, and to Keith's point, the final statement about getting the right board
Yeah.
with the skill set for the strategy
Yes.
that the company is pursuing. In terms of the boardroom, another committee here, what is the plan to be able to ensure that the FTSE 100 companies are looking towards that? Because I was fortunate to be part of a board member in a very small charity, and that was what we did. So every 3 years, we looked at the skill set and the strategy of the company, and where the gaps were, we were able to recruit into that skill set. So I think it'll be helpful to be able to advocate for that more in the FTSE 100 companies. So that board members don't stay there forever, because I'm the best friend of the chairperson, and so I could be there for 10 years. And your skill set is no longer required.
Ronnie, what you said right there is something that I have been seeing out there and when consulting. The majority of the boards today were set up under that old regime of hiring and bringing on your friends. And so you have all these executives out there that are afraid to hold their friends accountable. These are executives that held their teams accountable and former CEOs, but now with their board, I uncovered that they're afraid to hold them accountable. They're afraid to draw lines. They're afraid to say, you were asleep for half of the board meeting. And
You were snoring, by the way.
exactly. And so what I'm challenging boards to do there is to bring in outside consultants that can actually do peer-to-peer analysis, self-evaluations, and then begin to collect the data and do some data-driven decision-making, because now the outside person is going to say, these three people aren't respected on the board, and these three people should be replaced. Their skill sets do not align with the strategy, and they're not performing, and they're not respected. And guess what these chairs are saying? Oh, thank God. Because now I'm not the guy, it's the consultant that's saying it.
Yeah, and what Keith is saying is really important. So it goes beyond, I mean, you're already talking aspirational when you talk a skill set and matrix and all of that, right? So a lot of boards are not even doing that. But then beyond that, even if you have the right skills, what's the performance like? Are we actually evaluating our board? And that is something that is largely lacking. There is some informal self-evaluation, but please don't do peer-to-peer. Please don't do individual. Let's just do collective. How are we doing as a board? But don't tell me how I'm doing. And
that's why in Greece the law says that we have to have an outside consultant to do every 3 years the evaluation of the board. So
yes.
Thank you. My name is Valentin. I'm from Ukraine. I'm a chair of the biggest energy producer state-owned company. It's Ukrhydroenergo. We are 2 billion euro turnover every year. And I am in this board already 4 years. I'm an independent director.
Good for you.
Thank you very much. Yes. And I'm also certified Harvard Business School corporate director. So my question is, this topic was very interesting for me. I was listening carefully because I have very extensive experience solving and dealing with the problem of diversity, including in our board. When our board was created, we were 7. 3 of us were women. And I thought that it was not bad for the state-owned company, and inclusivity also was very well observed. Every member was had a different set of abilities, so it's also important, not only the issue of gender. But my question is, when we arrived into that state-owned company, it was the very beginning. There was no supervisory board before. So we were the first supervisory board. What we just mentioned, the diversity and inclusivity issues were never questions, were out of the radar of the company ever. Nobody talked about that, never. So this topic did not exist. And thanks to our diverse team, our women in the board raised that topic, and it became booming. And we did a lot of stuff. I will save our time, and I will not mention all these things. It was difficult, but as the board, who is the highest position in the company, trust me, it was not easy to explain what we are talking about, not even what we are doing about. And this year, please also remember, in Ukraine we have a war right now. Yeah, it's a difficult challenge. Every penny, every dollar counts. Yes, our company is super successful. We are super profitable, very nice managed, and we have enough resources to pay attention to stuff like this, even during the war. So we decided to announce a procurement to hire a consultant to develop for us diversity and inclusivity plan. It was the initiative of the board, because we understood that 4,000 employees need to understand how it works and benefits of this policy if it will be taken in place in the company. And you know what? We faced terrible social resistance. Wow. We were criticized publicly on all media in Ukraine by people who wrote in the letters. All media rained on us with terrible comments that we do not understand what we are doing because nobody need this topic, nobody spent money on that, etc., etc. My question is, what would your recommendation to us? How we can explain people what does it mean to have diversity in a business like we are? Thank you.
Oof, who's going to take that one?
I can. Yeah. A lot of the backlash that we're getting from a diversity standpoint comes from, I would say, the opponents of diversity are saying that meritocracy is being killed by diversity. And where I would start there is say that meritocracy is alive and well. And oftentimes the people that are marginalized are more educated and have more experience than many of the board members that are there today. And so it's funny to say, and occasionally I'll have people say, we are looking for an Hispanic, we are looking for an Asian, we are looking for a woman, but they must be qualified. Why did you say they must? I thought that was table stakes that they're going to be qualified. And so I think part of it is the education and saying that, first of all, let's set that aside. Meritocracy and qualification is just a given. Yeah. We look at our board today, and our board is not diverse, and we are trying to do things differently to get different results. So we're going to be intentional about where we actually hunt for this next board member, and in hunting for that board member, we're going to make certain that that person has all the qualifications. And so if most people fear not having that these people that we're bringing on they don't have the qualifications. In fact, in the U.S., there's this thing that some people don't want to get on an airplane that has a woman or a person of color flying the airplane because they believe affirmative action or these DEI things are the reason why that person was actually on. So it doesn't matter that that woman flew in various wars for the military and has over 1,000 sorties. They just assume that because that woman is flying the plane or that person of color is flying the plane, that they are not qualified. And that's just this unbiased thought process out there. It doesn't mean they're a racist. It just means there needs to be better education as to what DEI is all about. And let's put aside this unqualified thing that many mudslingers are actually putting out there right now. So I would say start there and re-educating as to what we're doing and the quality of the individuals that we're bringing on. Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
To raise awareness is the key.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary reports, get reports to justify the return on the investment.
There's a lot
so
of
you work for the
research out
state-owned company. I've sat on a state-owned board. You have huge liabilities because you're spending state-owned money. So the first thing that you need to do is to actually put everything in a report. The money that you're spending, what is the return on the investment, what are the true economic benefits of diversity. So you need the consultants to actually give you the reports. I know it sounds absurd, but we need to educate people and in order to do what's just. So make the reports and make the business case.
And you have to follow corporate governance best practices or a code or something.
Thanks, everyone. We really need to move on, but thank you.